bit tired. I get it. It's the last talk of the day. It's fine. I'm just curious, how many of you here are actually not from Italy? Yeah, cool. So please bear with me with my really strong Italian accent. And for this last half an hour, 45 minutes, and I'm going to share my experience mostly. This is not a technical talk. And it's about my story of and my relationship with the open design. And this talk, I'm figuring out, yes. No. Of course not. Okay, this talk is brand new. And I'm really excited to share it with you for the first time. And I'm already out, yeah. And I'm really happy to be here in my hometown. And I was talking with Elio. Elio is a fellow designer who is also doing a lot of open source projects as well. And I was asking him some opinion. I was asking him some advice. And at some point, he sent me the link to a talk of his. And he said, like, well, you know, just take a look of mine. I was like, okay, thank you, but don't worry. I'm not going to fork your talk. And he said, like, an open source designer should never be afraid to have somebody else forking your talk. So I thought it was a good way to get started, to kind of share with you the idea of collaboration and to tell you some horror story about my story at Mozilla. And I thought it was funny, but probably it's not funny, so let's put my professional picture here. And my name is Emanuela, and I'm working for Mozilla Firefox. I'm based in Berlin. And as you may imagine, it's pretty excited to be a UX designer for Firefox. How many of you here are Firefox users? Okay, a few. And this is not surprising, since that Firefox has the 50% of share market in Italy on desktop. Those are data coming from March. What is a bit surprising is that Firefox is the second browser. That means that most of the rest of the share belong to just one player, which is Chrome. And if you're one heavy Chrome user, just ask you why. I don't know. I don't want to tell anything, but yeah. Especially because in November, we just released a new version, which looks pretty crisp and sharp. We're really happy about that. We put a lot of cool feature inside, but maybe most of you are developers. So we also have our developer edition, which is some super cool grid inspector stuff for CSS grid. And the JavaScript console is evolving every day. It's pretty nice because it's not going with our 6-week sprint. So they just push update over and over. And if you check it right now, if I'm not mistaken, we just enable an accessibility panel, which is allow you to check if your project is accessible to a user who have maybe some impairity. So I get that it's really excited. That's what is good, you know, to working for a company that is open source and is really influenced by community. And I want to tell you the story. And this is, I'm going to tell you a lot of story. Sorry about that. The first story is about me. So 2 years ago, I was really sad at my job, in my previous job in Berlin. I really didn't like it, sorry. And I found this job post for a UX designer position in Mozilla Firefox. And I thought like, okay, you know what? This is a great opportunity for me to learn more. I will go there to the interview. I will definitely not go to get the job, but at least I can learn something, right? Yeah, I got a job. So, of course, I was really happy. And as many of the women here in the room, they probably at some point say something like, yeah, they probably mistake me with somebody else. I'm going to receive an email every day. They say like, nope, sorry, you didn't get the job, but you're a special pen. I don't know. But no, I actually got a job, and I was super happy until, you know, I was start to look on the internet about what user actually feels about Firefox, because I know how I feel about Firefox and how I felt at the time and how my friends felt about it. But what about everything else, everybody else? Well, this was one of the nicest comments that I found on the internet. And people were like, okay, with the redesign happening in 2013, people were like, okay, so this is your great idea of user interface, Mozilla? And this is one of the nicest. So people have opinion on the internet, we know that, right? And they don't, they're not really shy to share it. And I start to remember, like, okay, but how people were so mad. I don't know if you remember, but back in the days, we didn't have tabs. Tabs were something that were added by an add-ons, and they were just like a strip below the URL bar. So they were like down there. And this is, I think, from Firefox too. And they're like, okay, so those were the tabs. And they were super cool because we're giving to the user the possibility to add extra toolbars. And then ended up with those kind of results. So with the redesign of Australis, my future B colleagues, they decided to give to Firefox some personality. So they run the tabs and allow the user to adjust one toolbar. And that's bring people, to be a bit mad because they start to say like, oh, I have all my add-ons, where I can put my add-ons, and those curvy tabs, they don't look good. They don't look good. So I realized at the time that I was going to be in an environment where every design decision that I will take and that will have some influence on the product, people will react to that. And this is more common than what we think. I was talking, as I said before, to my friend Elio, and I asked to him some story. And he's like, yeah, you know, this is the worst experience that I ever had. It's part of this community. You can find them on GitHub. They call it opensourcedesign.com, where like open source project or in general software, and people can go there and ask for design advice or for design resources. In this case, it was the Apache Camel community that posted a tweet regarding, well, you know, we would really love to have a new logo that sounds really exciting. And my friend Elio proposed this one, that from my design perspective, to be something, you know, made for free looks pretty cool. But of course, people have opinion, right? So they start to say like, okay, not to diminish the great work by Elio, but, and we all know how this goes, right? When people put but, it's like, I'm not racist, but I have any problem with women, but nothing good is coming. Nothing good is coming. And if you approach somebody in this way, this is of course going to create tension. And if you're going to ask for a real designer when somebody's getting job and work for you for free, that's not great. Is any of you curious to see how the Apache Camel logo ended up to be? Like this. So I'm a designer, and I can say, well, so there is a problem. There is a problem when we talk about design, and the problem is around process. So what process to apply, and most importantly, who is going to take the decision? That really depends on your community, and it really depends on how you manage the people around you. Sometimes in open source community, people prefer to do just vote. So it's a sort of shared democracy. Everybody votes. The proposal that gets more votes is the one who is going to get there. It's not perfect, and it's also putting a lot of effort on the designer's shoulder, or who are going to compete to each other to get the most vote. Or sometimes there are some benevolent dictator, or who are in most of the case the leader in these communities, that are the ones that are going to take the decision and are the ones that are going to move opinions. And it seems way easy with code, right? Because we know that open source community works pretty well with code. And I don't have an answer about that, but I have a theory. My theory here is that with code, you wrote something, you wrote a script, and either work or doesn't work. And sometimes you probably, can have better code, more elegant, less line of code. That's our all valid point. But you always going to see if it works or doesn't work. And people always think that design is not the same. They think that design is something subjective. They think that design is something that it's really a matter of feeling and it's a matter of how I look at that, which is not. Also, design work and cannot work, but it depends on your education. It depends on the context. So every time that you judge a design that comes in front of you, I don't know, the redesign of Twitter or some new feature on Facebook, please take in consideration that the designer that designed that put a lot of effort in that and took in consideration a lot of different contexts. But this is not just a talk about design. It's a talk about design in open communities. And working in the open requires some work. Requires some work because working in the open means working with people that sometimes are far away, with people that don't know each other so well. And for this reason, it's hard to have a trustful relationship. This is something that happened even in Mozilla Firefox per se. Since that we are a distributed company, we don't know each other in person. And we miss all that coffee conversation and just, go out. That can really give you an idea that if I wrote something, you can imagine my voice and tone, and you may know better if I'm mad or what are actually my opinion in what I'm trying to communicate, most of the time through an email or a message in a forum. So working in the open requires some work, and we can identify 3 different areas where we can put those works. The first is resources, second in tools, and then platform. We're going to see all of the session in particular with some example. And let's start from resources. That the resources, from my perspective, is what enabled the community and the people in the community to reuse what already exists. And the first thing that came to my mind when I think about resources, when I think about community, is design system. And design system, for my personal definition, is that it's a product that serves other products, or in this case, it can be a product that serves a community. How many of you are familiar with the concept of design system or partner library or style guide? Okay, most of you. And how many of you are using it in their daily job? Not so many. The reason why design systems are really cool is that it allows people to make the right choice in the easiest way as possible. And it's just so obvious that the easiest decision is there that you were not supposed to find another solution. And maybe a lot of people, they can say, yeah, design systems are great because they help consistency. I don't really agree with that. For me, it's more a matter of coherency, but that's another point. And what is more important about design system and design system as a resource is that design system create a shared language that then everybody can speak it. And that works really well when you talk about internal product, but when you have a community, that's also create an extra layer because it increases collaboration. If you're giving to your user a vocabulary of your design language, they're going to use it, they're going to apply, and most importantly, they're going to understand your decision. When we are talking about open source community, of course, we are also talking about people that they want to improve the product. They're not just passive user, are users that they want to be involved. That's why giving them resources is a way to keep them in the loop. And the design system also increased the generation of experiment so that probably we can compare different components that behave in different way, proposed from the community, but also proposed for the company per se. And those experiments are going to have the same validation and the same weight because they're coming from a language that is shared by everybody. This is the Photon design system, which is the current design system of Firefox, is part of my job in my everyday life. That's also why probably I think it's really important. And it was a really cool experience to build it last year because we noticed how people were engaged with us, even users that we were imaging, like extension developer. And we also created other tools, like an icon website where people can go there and download it. I know this is nothing new, like the material design by Google is basically doing the same for create a community of people that can build the product in a material way. And I like that. I think that's a way to increase the conversation around design and to increase the way that we talk about design. And I have another story here. This time is coming from my friend Tobias, who is an interaction designer, like helping them with the GNOME project, which is, how can I say, like sort of operating system built on top of Linux somehow. And they're managing, thanks to the design system, thanks of the GNOME design system, a lot of design requests. And by this, they just basically in GitLab add a label needs design. And the designer, they don't need to propose pixel perfect mockup, but they can just provide the flow. They can just provide some wireframe to give to developer that are open developer that they do not work for them, for GNOME, and they can build it. And it's actually working surprisingly well. So we see the resources of what enable people to reuse what is already in place. But what if people want to build something new? Well, in order to build something, we need to give people tools. And my favorite way to talk about tools is to talk about design tokens, which is kind of a meta way to do it, because thanks to the design token, we can generate a lot of tools for those people. And how design token works? Everything starts with a design decision. So in this case, in our case, the story that I know, we have designer in Firefox that they take some design decision. Let's say they decide what are the colors and how we need to use the colors for being photon compliant. And by that, we create the token. The token usually are written just in a JSON file. They're really easy to read and to write, and they're understandable. And most importantly, they're not just understandable from the designer or developer perspective, but those are understandable by all series of scripts that can help us to create a token data for Android, for the web. In this case, let's say that we have colors. We created like it's XML for Android, a SAS file, or a simple CSS file. And then from there, we can propagate and create all different tools for all different people. And what is super cool is that since that we are starting from a really agnostic point, like a JSON file, we are ready for the next big thing. So if a new language come out, we are ready. We just need to find somebody. Most of the time, surprisingly, is somebody from the community that wants to use the new language. It's like, oh, that's really cool. I will just write a script and get this information in this new language that I really want to use. And as you see, we're like maintaining the same design decision in all the process. We just convert, we change the way that we communicated that, but it's the same. And from that, we can create tool, so we can export it for Keynote, we can use it in our CSS. We have here the JSON file. That's how our JSON file currently looks. No, actually, this is pretty old, but yeah. And we can also create NPM modules that people can use it in their everyday job. And you maybe think, why is it important? Like, you're working in Firefox, people are using that. No, we have a lot of extension developers that want to use it in their products as well. So that's why it's interesting that we can distribute it to them so they can use it in everyday job. And it's not just about code. As I showed before, from the JSON file, we can also create a sketch palette, keynote palette, but there is also some work that we cannot just give it to the script. So, like the template for the icons. We create icons for Firefox that then we distributed to the website that I showed before, but what if somebody needs a new icon that we don't really need it in our everyday job at Firefox? Well, it makes sense to provide a template that people can reuse. And what I want to stress here, that those tools are used in the same way by internal people that from external. And I see a really big opportunity here. So when you build something that you think, oh, this is just going to help us, probably can help somebody else. So think to make it open source is always a good idea, especially because people then can improve it. And as I said before, there is the open source design community that they have a lot of resources, all things that are open source, like fonts that you can base on your Nets logo, your Nets typeface, and icons. So we talk about resources, we talk about tools. Now we need a place where people can meet. And this place are the platform that help to facilitate the conversation between you and the rest of your community. And as I said before, I'm working for the design system team, but I'm also working for the add-ons team. We actually try to move away from this term add-ons because it's kind of confusing. What we currently do is just give it to user extensions and team so that they can make their Firefox experience more personal. And I have a story related to that really understands the importance to have a platform where to have conversation. And the story is the story to when, more or less in 2016, we finally decided which was the day that we're going to deprecate legacy extension. So just to give you a bit of context here, we had in the past those extensions that we call it now legacy extension that were using these obscure language called Zool, and they were really powerful, and they were able to do whatever into Firefox. Problem was that that wasn't a technology that was important to commit anymore. And that was because Chrome was starting using web extension that basically just have some API to let the developer call some specific action into the browser. So you can have more granularity, but also more control, for sure. And this is great for security reasons, because when you let a developer do everything with your product, you may also end up endanger some more naive user. So we declared that from November 2017, Firefox will run only web extension. And this didn't make our community really happy. People start talking about self-suicide, which was kind of that's a big topic, if you allow me, or going really into the specific details, say like, this is the only reason that people are using Firefox, so make an assumption. And I'm going to move away from Firefox, and together with me, a lot of other people will move. And this was the blog post. And he had a lot of answers, most of them really too long to be read. And a lot of people were angry, and there were a lot of sentiment. This is actually not over, but I wasn't able to take a full screenshot and to have it move all along because it was way too long. So what I like to underline here is that communication is the key. And in the end, even if people from the community were feeling really bad and they were feeling betrayed, it was important to us moving forward and make some people unhappy for that year. That wasn't easy on us, on people working in Firefox, and it wasn't easy on people working on their own extension. They were feeling like betrayed. But in the end, we ended up having a lot of positive story. We managed to do the transition from legacy add-ons to web extension in a smoother way. We had 98% of the most popular 500 add-ons ported to web extension, and they also give us the opportunity to get a lot of Chrome developer that were like developing extension for Chrome porting to Firefox. So we're kind of increasing our proposal for all our users and not just for our close community. And that's why it's important to tell positive story as well. There are a lot of downsides in working with the communities, but the positive one are, I guess, the nicest one. And also having a sort of communication with the user. So we talk about platform. In this way, the platform before was the website, and doing activity around your platform, was the blog. And doing activity around your platform, so around the blog, like in this case, create a challenge to get people excited again about extension. If you want to participate, I think it's still on, probably. And so people are excited, they can try new technology and then don't feel betrayed anymore. So blogs is just one platform. What we then people add in order to talk in open source community are backtrackers and social network. GitHub for sure is a place where it's really easy to set your open source project and to talk about not only code but also design. And you can see here, this one is coming from the design tokens, how some of them, like this one, are not coming by us, but are coming from extension developer in this case, which was really excited. And remember that not all your users are part of your community. So sometimes you need to be hard on your community for being nice to your user. This has happened 2 weeks ago. So this developer wanted to disable the Ask button on the keyboard to close some panel in Firefox because he thought it was really important for his perspective. Unfortunately, doing such a thing will result to not a good experience for all the users. They cannot close this panel in any other way. So if I was going there and giving something to this community member, I was taking something way bigger away to all other users that are like power users that want to use keyboard all the time, or people that cannot click it for just momentary disability. So remember that not everybody is part of your community, but if you engage with them, everybody can be part of your community. And that's why we invest a lot of time on Reddit, and it's not the nicest place of the internet, but it's good because people sometimes have trouble, and if you go there and if you help them, you can probably transform this user, which is already active because it's here, it's having a conversation, it's just not calling his techie friends and try to solve it. They're looking for an answer, and this is a great moment to transform those from user to community members. And as a designer, they told to us a lot that we need to listen to the user. We need to listen to the user are the number one. And I agreed with that, but how? How can we listen to the user when we have such a strange conversation? And this is just when we removed the round the top that people hated so much 5 years ago, and the people say, I literally hate everything right now about the new design. Or how is it possible that Firefox 57 is so bad? It really disturbed me. I'm sorry. And this is like, if we just look at those negative feedback, of course you're going to feel really stressed as a designer. You're going to feel that your work, maybe you're not good for this job. But then there are also a lot of nice people on the internet, and I think that's just the nature of the internet. People have opinion, and they share it, and sometimes are bad, but sometimes are good. And those are all like positive user. I had more than 5, believe me. And maybe even one of you had some opinion regarding the new Firefox design, or had some opinion when one of his favorite open source software changed the interface. So I am still afraid of open design. The answer is yes, and that's because when we talk about open design, we talk about people, and we talk about the unknown. And the fear of the unknown is definitely the oldest and the strongest fear of the world. But believe me, I will not change my my job in an open source community for anything else. So thank you very much for having me, and I'm open to any question.